As a business-to-business marketer, your needs are unique. B2B buying cycles are long, and your customers face incredibly complex decisions. Isn't it time you had a marketing platform built specifically for you? LinkedIn ads empower marketers with solutions for you and your customers. LinkedIn ads allow you to build the right relationships, drive results, and reach your customers in a respectful environment. On LinkedIn, you'll have direct access to and build relationships with decision makers. Of the 875 million users on the network, 180 million are senior-level executives, 10 million are C-level executives. You will also be able to drive results with targeting and measurement tools built specifically for B2B. And they work. Audiences exposed to brand messages on LinkedIn are 6 times more likely to convert. LinkedIn ads also ranked number 1 for security, community, and ad experience as part of Business Insider's Digital Trust Study. Here at Sway Group, LinkedIn is a pivotal part of our day-to-day and is just absolutely vital for building relationships with clients and with our employees. Make B2B marketing everything it can be and get a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey there, it's Jason with the Marketing Podcast Network. Real quick, I want to make sure you know that the world's leading B2B Marketing Expo is returning to the Los Angeles Convention Center on March 21st and 22nd. It's high time we got back together to learn, see the latest technologies and solutions, and network, right? Join thousands of marketing professionals just like you to learn from over 250 industry expert speakers, educational masterclasses, and over 300 exhibitors. And this year, your ticket also gets you into the Sales Innovation Expo and the Marketing and Advertising Expo. So it's like 3 conferences in one. It's March 21st and 22nd at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Go to b2bmarketingexpo.us to register. That's b2bmarketingexpo.us. The Marketing Podcast Network is a proud partner of the B2B Marketing Expo for 2023. We'll see you in LA.
Welcome to The Art of Sway. This is a podcast that brings you inside the world of marketing through the lens of influence. I'm your host, Danielle Wiley. Each week, through candid conversations with industry insiders, we will uncover how influencer marketing is making an impact across all consumer buying habits and is changing the way we talk to each other. Let's dive in. If you follow me on social media, you have likely heard me say that Gen Z is going to save us all. Rarely is that more apparent to me than when I am speaking with Ziad or his colleagues. This is a thoughtful and fun discussion, and I hope you enjoy. Ziad Ahmed is a 23-year-old entrepreneur. He is the CEO of JUV Consulting, a Generation Z consultancy that works with clients to help them understand young people. JUV has worked with over 20 Fortune 500 companies, has been profiled by the New York Times, and has launched major purpose-driven TikTok campaigns. Because of JUV, Ziad was named to the 2019 Forbes 30 Under 30 list when he was just 19 years old. Ziad also just graduated from Yale. Additionally, he is a founder of Redefy, a youth-run nonprofit committed to furthering equality. He speaks often on the power of his generation, and he seeks to use his voice to push the envelope forward wherever and however possible. Overwhelmingly, though, he's just another Gen Zer spending way too much time on TikTok. You can learn more about him via @Ziad Ahmed on all the usual social channels. Well, hello.
Hi.
Ziad, it's so good to have you on.
It's so good to be chatting with you, my friend. I'm grateful to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you on here. I guess we should probably share a little bit of background. So how we met in the first place is we had like a little bit of a meet cute.
Yeah, a little bit of meet cute is right. I think that's correct.
So you were roommates at Yale with my cousin's son because I'm old. Yeah.
And now here we are.
So I would love if you could start by sharing just your journey because it's definitely unique and I'm sure you have shared it 100 times, but you started your company in high school, which is nuts to me, but maybe like take us through all of that, because I think it's such an interesting story.
Yeah, happy to. Well, thanks again for having me. A pleasure to be here. So a little bit more about me. I'm Ziad. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the CEO and founder of JUV Consulting. I'm 23 years old. And sort of long story short, how I ended up here is I actually started a nonprofit when I was in 8th grade built around social equality and social acceptance, which basically propelled me to find myself in rooms that I didn't even know existed at a very young age, with industry leaders, with politicians, etc., where I realized how often young people are being spoken about but not spoken to. And that didn't sit right with me. And so my junior year of high school, I founded JUV Consulting with this idea being that I believe the world looks better when diverse young people have a seat at the table. And I believe really sincerely that the expert on any reality is the person closest to that reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there are so many conversations around the power of the next generation and very little empowering of the next generation with legitimacy at the table. And so I wanted to do something about that. And so I started JUV my junior year of high school. I had no idea what I was doing. Never aspired to do this full time or to have full-time employees. And 6.5 years later, having graduated from college, having grown the business far beyond my wildest imaginations, here I am. And we now sit around 30 folks full time with offices in New York and LA. And I'm in LA right now, but I'm usually based in New York. And we get to do a lot of really impactful work to center the voices of diverse young people and to hopefully do business a little bit differently and to do some translation work and community building work and storytelling work that'll hopefully move some hearts and minds. But it's certainly been a journey and a roller coaster. And I've learned a lot along the way, and I'm still learning a lot along the way. But yeah, I think that's me. That's us. But happy to answer more questions that you might have.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I feel like I've talked to you about this before, but it's one of the things that I love about that story is because I feel like I had a similar epiphany, which led me to start Sway, which is that I saw so much of the marketing towards moms was being created by like a bunch of dudes in a room and it had nothing to do with what we really wanted to hear or what our needs were. And I just think regardless of whether it's generational or demographic or psychographic, it's so important to have that story come from someone who's authentically telling that story and not just like coming up with something that they think we want to hear.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So having started the company in high school, what do you think about it now? Like, do you regret starting it so young and working full time while going to school for, I guess it was 6 years it ended up being, because 2 years of high school and 4 years of college?
Yeah. Regret's a hard word. If I could go back and do things differently, I would.
Yeah.
I think I say sometimes, I think I spent a lot of my youth calling myself young and not enough time being young. And so if I could go back and do it differently, I would. I don't know if that means that I wouldn't have started the company. I think maybe I would have started it differently.
Yeah.
I think I maybe reoriented my life a little differently and prioritized my time differently. But I'm proud of our journey. I'm proud of how far we've come. I feel really grateful to live the life that I do. And I feel profoundly lucky that this idea that I had as a junior in high school in my bedroom has blossomed to where it is today, and that I get to work with my best friends and get to be in rooms to hopefully, shape culture, right? And make the change that I want to see in the world at a really young age. And I don't take that for granted. And I know that a place where I'm at right now has only been made possible by the fact that I started so young. By the fact that I was privileged enough to start so young, right? I had a head start, and I see how that's played out. And in some ways, I'm grateful for that. In other ways, I look back and I was like, damn it, I should have just been a normal kid. I never really felt like one. And so I think it's a bit of both. It's a push and a pull. I don't know that I have a good answer for you other than I grapple with that question every day. Right? On both sides of the equation. I think the other side of the equation is, why didn't I drop out? Why did I go to school at all? Right?
Oh, interesting.
I could have an even greater head start had I been fully committed to this while I was in school, and I chose not to. I chose to stay in school and to graduate. And I grapple with all sides of this question for sure.
I think no matter what you do, you have regrets, or maybe even like what ifs. Like I was just talking to someone this weekend. I did not have much fun in high school because I was so focused. Took extra classes, so I skipped lunch, and and then by the time I got to college, I was completely fried and like didn't do anything extracurricular. And I mean, I think we all have what ifs or like how things could have been different. But I mean, had you not started it, you probably would be kicking yourself that someone else got things done before you. Or
I would love to imagine a version of myself that wouldn't. I'd love to imagine a version of myself that isn't so fixated on achievement and instead fixated on community. And I think that's the person that I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I did it in some ways, for sure.
And what kind of challenges did you have as you were starting the company, or even now? Like you said, you didn't really know what you were doing. So what did that look like?
I have a lot more challenges now than I did then.
Yes. Well, the bigger you get.
And I think also the stakes are very different, right? Like when I started and I was a high schooler and all of us were high schoolers, like the stakes weren't very high. Failure wasn't particularly scary because none of us wanted for this to be the main part of our lives. This was supposed to be a small side project. And when we got work, cool, that was exciting. It was a cherry on top. We just thought this should exist and we waited for people to come to us, right? And they did because we were ahead in the sense that we were ahead in even calling ourselves Gen Z, right? When we started, a lot of people still thought of people our age group as millennials. And we were early to call ourselves Gen Z. We were early to get started in doing what we do. And so people started to naturally, organically reach out to us. And it grew because demand grew. But I never thought this would be what it is today. And I have full-time employees who have children now. Like that is crazy to me to even like conceptualize, let alone confront as like my truth. But my challenges when I started was like, how do you even start a business? I had no idea. Like, how do you even like structure any of this? To what extent do we want to be doing any of this? And then it just sort of happened. But it was funner and freer in the sense that we were very risk-takey when we started because we weren't really gambling with much, right? Like whatever happened, happened. We were just, having fun and doing what felt right. And we were very emboldened and empowered to say no to things. Right? To know our worth and to say, no, I don't want to do that. It doesn't sound fun. And now it's like, I have overhead and I have employees and I have offices and I have to make decisions that are best for the whole community that allow us to still exist in a month over month. In some ways, like stifles creativity, right? Because it means that I can't be as bold and as brazen as I once was. And so I miss that. But I don't have the same challenges that I did then in the sense that like now we do have capital. When we were young, when we were then, like I didn't pay myself. We couldn't pay for anything, right? Like we paid all our team members, but the co-founders didn't pay ourselves. And we'd be incredibly frugal because we didn't have like any cash and we never raised money and we still haven't. And now we have a bit more capital. I can put on a nice event, which is pretty new for us to be able to do that or to do things like that. So that's cool and that's fun that like we're in a place now where we can do big things and do new things. And the challenges in the beginning were getting in the door, getting into the room. And now like we get invited to a lot of rooms and doors, which is really exciting and cool. But the challenges still feel a lot heavier because they're a lot realer. While those were challenges in the beginning, I didn't even know those rooms existed. I didn't even know the cool events were something that I wanted to do. Whereas now, okay, like we're doing those things, that's great. But there are 1,000,001 challenges in running a scalable business that I confront every day. And it feels a lot realer because this is my whole life in a way that when I started it, it wasn't at all.
I'm super interested because I know you had the office in New York and now you also have an office in LA. We don't have an office at all. And so I'm so interested in your decision behind having an office and what your thoughts are on that, because I feel like what I had seen was that like boomers and Gen X felt like offices were vital. And then things started to change a little bit. And then I saw that millennials working for us did not like that we didn't have an office because they felt lonely. But now that we're starting to get Gen Z in, they love that we don't have an office because they want the flexibility. It just seems like there's a lot of differing perspectives, and some of it is generational and some of it is just personal. And
so I think, look, I don't think there's one size fits all policy. I think for us as a company, we think of ourselves more as a community than a company often. And we think the future of business is really community oriented. And I think JUV is a place where a lot of people work here because of the vibes and the values, right? At least I hope so. And I think that's what I hear. I think it's a lot harder to curate vibes digitally. Not impossible, but much harder. I also think turnover is much higher when people don't feel connected to their community. Most often when you decide pros and cons of leaving a job, especially when, in the agency world, like we can't pay as much as brand side a lot of the time, right? Like that's just the name of the game, right? And so if someone's going to stay here and make less than they could elsewhere, why are they staying here, right? What's keeping them here? And I think for a lot of folks, especially young folks, it's because like their friends work here, right? Because it feels right to work here, right? And because they're bought into a sense of us, into a sense of, a culture that they identify with. And for me, like I am very much a part of that we in the sense, like that's why I work here, right? Like I work here because I like seeing my colleagues every day. Like I work here because I like laughing with them, right? I work here because like I like what us feels like. And why I'm quite bullish on in-person offices is Zoom calls always end on time. Like almost never are you on a Zoom and you like, I just happen to stay on the Zoom for 4 hours.
This is the best thing ever. Let's just keep going.
But you rarely do that, right? Whereas in person, like you lose track of time all the time. And I think there's something really magical about losing track of time. And I think for a lot of young people, like my mom, like she loved the pandemic from the perspective, I mean, not to diminish all the horrible things that happened during the pandemic, but like her kids were home and she got to spend time with us. And like, she's married and has kids and and like, whereas I think a lot of us are still trying to find our friends and find our spouses and meet our spouse by the microwave. Right. And it's hard to meet your spouse in a Zoom box. Right. And I think a lot of us are still looking for community, especially coming out of a pandemic. And I think the loneliness that Gen Z feels writ large, and that isn't to say that people are itching for a rigid 9 to 5. I don't know that that's what people are looking for, but I think in-person convenience, in-person culture, in-person community means a lot to us. You're seeing Gen Z spend on concerts, on community, on conferences, on experiences in big ways, because I think we're itching for that. We want to feel like we are part of something bigger than ourselves and to meet people and to feel like we have people. And I want for JUV to be a place where people feel like they have people who have their back, who know them, who care about them. And I think in-person space is a big part of that. But we don't have a policy where people have to come in every single day, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Right. Having spaces that we can convene and having flexible policies such that it makes sense for people to come in when, it is the goal. But especially in LA, like we have a house here that's also an event space for our clients. And, we convene creators and creatives here. And it's more than just our office, right? It really is a cultural hub of bringing people together from all walks of life and triggering conversations that matter. And we find a lot of joy and fulfillment in that. And I think for me, I love my job a lot more when I can see the smiling faces around me and we can laugh together. And I hope that's how other people feel about the company too. And in-person space is really important to us to do that. For us as a young company where a lot of us don't have our lives settled yet, right? Like this is our settling moment. And so I think having some sense of anchor that an office can offer, I think is often important.
I love that it's like I was saying to someone that I think the pandemic made us realize that we actually do like being around people, but that we want to do it on our own terms and that it doesn't make sense anymore to have to be around during a certain time frame, but that there is something really great about coming together when it makes sense and for that community and just to hang out, but to be like chained to a desk doesn't make sense anymore.
And I think even our spaces, I think speak to the fact that we're not trying to make people work on couches, right? And we have daily dance parties, right? And it's not like a rigid, you're at your desk, but I want for people to want to come in because they enjoy it. And I think that's not enough big companies are tackling is they're come in, but they're not really changing how work operates so that it makes sense to come in, right? No one wants to come into the office to just be on Zoom all day, right? There needs to feel this was intentionality, that there was a reason that I was here. And I gained something from being here. And I think our amazing People Ops team led by Maya Irvin, my dear friend and Chief People Officer, I think has thought really critically as to what makes it worth it to come in, because it should be.
So going back to the essence of what you guys do, just super simply dumbing it down for the people who haven't thought about this before, if that even exists. What are the things that make Gen Z different from generations that came before, or even from generations now coming up after you guys as you are aging up?
Of course. And I'm getting all of the shows, right? I live a little bit of scruff. I'm wary, one, of talking about Gen Z as a monolith or positioning myself as a Gen Z expert in the sense that there are over 2 billion Gen Zers. It would be irresponsible for me to claim that I know every reality and every nuance of such a non-monolithic cohort. So when I talk about Gen Z, my perspective is informed by my privileged Western perspective and the work that I have done working with many thousands of Gen Zers over the last decade and doing a lot of research and data collection, both in aggregation and in novel experimental design, to have these perspectives that I have. But with all that said, and all those caveats said, I think Gen Z, like every generation, every young generation, has looked at the world and said, just because things have been this way doesn't mean they have to stay this way. I think what is unique about Gen Z is the access to digital tools that we have meant that our disruption gets to be mainstream nearly instantaneously, right? It doesn't take Kent State for us to be heard. With the click of a button, you can bring down Fire Festival. And what an enormous, responsibility and power that is. And I think we are living in a moment where Gen Z uniquely, as a young generation, has had outsized influence from the perspective that, as you didn't directly say, but maybe alluded to, we've lived in a moment in the last few years where maybe employees felt more powerful over their employers than employers felt over their employees. Right?
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
We lived in a moment where a lot of parents felt like they had to lean on their kids to teach them more so than maybe kids even had to lean on their parents to teach vice versa, right? Because of the rapid pace, especially in the pandemic, that digital became everything. And we were the most fluent in social media, the most fluent in digital, and we're the loudest voices on a lot of these platforms that are defining culture and defining discourse. And so what you're seeing is a young, empowered generation that maybe uniquely knows our power and knows our worth and isn't shying away from it. We're not waiting our turn, right? And we've seen that we don't have to, right? Like when my mom was a kid, certainly maybe there were some young people doing amazing, bold, big things. She didn't really know that they existed. There were 3 channels on the TV, and if she didn't see them, then she didn't know them. And there wasn't a lot of agency that she had to do huge things at that moment, right? In her, whereas for us, I think we're deeply conscious of the fact that there are young people doing everything at the highest level. And so I think we feel an enormous pressure to perform, to do, to be, and acting on that pressure and doing and disrupting, right? And grabbing the microphone and passing the microphone. And I think we are different in the world events that have shaped our lives. When you think about Gen Z, our lifetimes have been marked thus far by 9/11 and COVID, right? 19. Yeah. And in the interim, you've seen nearly continuous warfare, financial crisis, political instability, geopolitical turmoil. You've seen almost every major institution that's supposed to be there for us let us down. And I think you're looking at a generation that is deeply skeptical, righteously, about the world around us and the ethic around us or lack thereof, and is itching for better, really meaningfully trying to achieve better. And it doesn't mean that we all agree. It doesn't mean that we're all on the same page. But I think that by and large, when you talk to most young people, I think the vast majority of us would say, this can't be the best that we can be. And we'll be damned if we don't try to make us better. And I think that the ability to make us better doesn't feel as far away as maybe it did for generations prior. I think there's a sense that we can do it now and we must do it now.
That was going to be my question. Like, so do you think that there's more hope? Like, I talk to my dad about politics all the time, and it's difficult sometimes because I think he feels so dismayed and depressed and like so down about all of it. And it's really hard for me. So do you think that like Gen Z, it sounds to me like there's more hope there because you see that you can make change?
So I don't know that it's hope. I certainly think there are many Gen Zers who are hopeful perhaps, but I think there's a million reasons to be really defeated, to feel really defeated, right? To feel like it's so heavy and how can we ever fix it and no one's on our side and people have been trying to organize and mobilize for generations and here we still are with these same problems that are getting worse in a lot of cases. And who's listening? It feels like we're shouting in the dark. I think there's a lot of rational conclusions to what's wrong with the world. And I think one rational conclusion is like, what can I do? Right? Like these problems are just so big. But then another rational conclusion is burn it all down. It's not even worth trying to fix it. Like burn it all down. I think a lot of young people feel that way. It's not hope. It's a sense of like, fuck trying to fix it. I don't know if I'm not a curse here. Like trying to fix this. Like this isn't fixable, right? These systems are not broken. They're working exactly as designed.
Let's whole scale change it. Like New World Order.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young people feel that way. It's just like burn the whole thing down because the narrative that it's broken implies that it ever worked, right? And it never did. It never has. Like these systems were intentionally constructed to keep people down, to marginalize, to subjugate. And I think there's a third camp, right, which is there's a lot wrong, feels very heavy. I don't know that I'll fix all of it, but I'll be damned if I don't try to make it a little bit better each day. And that's all I can hope for. And I think people might oscillate between these 3 different philosophies or ideologies, but I don't know that it's so rooted in hope as it is out of necessity, right? Like, I think like to make an analogy, like if your house is on fire, I don't think it's hope that makes you put out the fire. It's desperation. But it's not like that you hope the fire, you know what I mean? Like it's a sense of like, it's on fire. We're just going to throw everything we have at this fire because there's nothing else that we could possibly imagine doing because the fire is aflame. And I think like that's what it feels like, I think, for a lot of young people. It's not that like, oh, I'm so hopeful the world will change for the better, in the sense that I think we have a million reasons to not be hopeful because people have been organizing and trying to change things forever. But it is a sense of like, the world is quite literally on fire. Let's throw what we got at it, right?
But you're seeing the possibility, like even with the house on fire example, you're trying to put it out because you see that there's the possibility that you can.
Or at least that you couldn't sleep at night if you didn't try.
Right. There has to be some kind of, I mean, hope feels so Pollyanna-ish, but there has to be some kind of like little inkling that something can change, or you're not going to have that motivation to do it.
I think there's a hope that like maybe we can be better than the generations before us, right? Like maybe when we're in charge, things won't look like this. And so I think I think for many of us, there might be some semblance of hope. I don't think for all of us. I think some people are, you know, even as I get older, like I feel myself getting more jaded. I used to be more hopeful than I am now. I used to really believe digital tools would make the world better, and now I'm not so sure. I used to really believe that our generation would change everything. Now I'm not so sure. And it isn't to say that I've lost all hope, right? Like I still believe in the power of our generation, and I still believe that there are ways that we can use these tools to make the world better. But I'm a lot more skeptical and I'm a lot more jaded. And I think that growing up does do that to you. But I do see when I talk to 14-year-olds and give speeches to them and I ask them, like, what would you change about the world? And they're like, genome editing. I'm like, what? I don't know what that is, right? Like, and there, I think because of the access to information we have, I think young people are really informed about the ills of society and really motivated to do something about it. And whether that stems from a place of desperation or hope or necessity or integrity, we're seeing it play out in a million and one ways. And hopefully in aggregate, it does change the world. I mean, to your point, I am sort of counting on it.
And so you're talking a little bit about apps. I'm super curious to know from like a social media perspective, where are you spending, or not even spending time, but like, what are you enjoying these days? Just personally, like Ziad hanging out, having fun.
There is no greater joy in my life than watching television. Like I love TV more than I do any social media platform. I also think we're like in a renaissance of television, right?
Yes, it's very good right now.
Right, like coming out of the last few years, I mean, there's just been so much money poured into TV and so many shows have come out, and I am rapturously consuming that content. I've probably watched 50 seasons of TV so far this year. Like I love TV. And part of that is because I love it. Part of it is it's my job to be like culturally literate, or at least that's how I justify it to myself. I also spend a ton of time on TikTok, and I don't think there's any question to me about like what is the most influential platform right now in terms of what platform is influencers are emerging from, what platform is creating most of the conversation and or discourse or trends that that are influencing how we communicate with each other and changing our psyches and psychologies. I mean, TikTok is the moment. I unquestionably, but I also still spend a ton of time on Instagram. But Instagram is far more so something that I use to connect with friends and DM friends and stay updated on my friends' lives than it is a way to discover new information or a way to discover new trends or influencers or things of that nature. So from a cultural perspective, I think it is TikTok. From a more social perspective, I think that it is Instagram. I'm also a huge Be Real advocate. I love Be Real.
I love Be Real.
And so I certainly use Be Real. I think there are a ton of platforms right now that, different niches and communities love and are obsessed with. Those are the ones that I'm probably spending most of my time on, or probably, Instagram, TikTok, TV broadly, or where I consume most of my content. But I love Facebook. I'm gonna be honest, like not as a company, obviously, like whatever, like we can all have our critiques, but I have critiques of all these platforms, right? I have critiques of social media at large. It's not that I'm the biggest advocate of or fan of any of these platforms, any of these companies, but it is to say that I love Facebook because I think it's so funny. Like I love seeing what adults post on Facebook. Like I think it's so funny.
So we're just entertaining you.
Yeah, I don't post on it ever, but like I love seeing what adults post on Facebook.
I use it really only for the groups. I could give or take Facebook, but I have groups that I check in. Like for me, it's that community, not the newsfeed.
Yeah, I love the newsfeed though. I think it's hilarious. It's the funniest social media platform by far. No one realizes they're being hilarious, but I find it hysterical. But I also love that it tells me whose birthday it is, which is very important to me, to wish people happy birthday. Because no other platform really does that.
And what do you think of Gas? I was just reading about Gas today. Do you know that one? It's like a high school.
Yeah, but I'm not on it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's so many new ones.
Yeah.
And like there's another one my friends were just talking about, which is like sort of like Be Real, but like it makes it like you take numerous videos and it like compiles them into a little video GIF thing. And like there's so many to keep up with. I don't know that I'm that much of an early adopter. I was relatively early to TikTok, I would say, but I think again, as I get older, I'm probably less an early adopter than I used to be.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, so my last question for you, and this one is sometimes difficult for younger guests because commercials weren't a thing all the time when you were a kid, but I ask everyone what your favorite commercial was growing up or what commercial from your childhood has stuck with you.
That is an amazing question. A million come to mind. Like I think I've always had this sort of advertising marketing mind. I mean, the one that comes to mind most, I don't know why this came to mind first, is like Danimals sweepstakes. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know Danimals, like the yogurt.
Yeah. So they used to like have these, like they used to like on Disney Channel, they used to partner with like the big Disney Channel actors and do like sweepstakes. And it was like, you could meet Cole Sprouse. Like,
I would love to meet Cole Sprouse.
Yeah, it was that sort of thing. And there's a lot of like actually internet discourse about it now in like retrospect and nostalgia to be like, who won? Like we never saw did anyone win? Like was it all a facade? I don't know. but like we were all like rapturously like obsessed, I think, with that motif that they created. I mean, there were so many things that I think were marketed so well when we were kids that I loved. I mean, I think like that certainly comes to mind. I mean, it's not that I remember how it was marketed, but like I loved Nintendogs. I don't know how I got in. I don't know like where I learned about Nintendogs, but like I loved Nintendogs. I loved Silly Bands. Again, I don't know like that there was a marketing campaign around Silly Bands, but like, I was obsessed with Silly Bands. I was obsessed with Webkins, like obsessed with Webkins. And so like there was some, but I don't know that it was really the marketing or like more like the word of mouth.
Yeah, it was just at school. My daughter has started wearing Silly Bands again.
Yeah.
And she was like, where are my Silly Bands? And I was like, I did not save
your Silly Bands. No, but I saved mine for sure. But like we have a podcast as a company called Just Us Vibing, when it's all about like celebrating the youth that we still have left in nostalgia. And we talk a lot about these like things that were so like seminal to like Razor scooters, right? Like there are certain things that were just like so cute. Or Heelys. Heelys had good commercials. I remember that. But like there were certain things that were just like so iconic. Like I think Disney Channel for me, like just huge. Like the Disney Channel summer games were like so important to me. Like so important to me. They were only for like 3 summers, but they were so important to me. And like also like those little like songs that they created like in between commercial, like as a part of the commercial breaks to like advocate for good causes and things like that. But they definitely like all really has stayed with me in a big and deep way, which is perhaps unsurprising given the career that I have chosen for myself.
Yeah. No, I think nostalgia hits with everyone. I mean, we all love to go back.
Yeah.
You know, for me, when I'm feeling like early days of the pandemic, when I was so stressed, I would fall asleep to Golden Girls because that's what I watched when I was little. And it just like maybe, and then my daughter would watch Hannah Montana. You know, she's 21 and I
just bought a Hannah Montana t-shirt last week.
I mean, there's just no matter how old you are, I think that nostalgia just is soothing.
They did a great job marketing. Like I remember there was one night where like both Nickelodeon and Disney Channel were coming out with like a movie, and it was like Dad Napped on Disney Channel and Spectacular, I think was the name on Nickelodeon. And like we were so stressed which one to watch. And so we like toggled back on cable during, like me and my sisters, we toggled back and forth during commercial breaks to watch the other one. And so like whatever they were doing, it was working. It was working.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. So I sometimes wonder if I should still ask this question, but then I end up with a great conversation.
No, I think it's a great question. Oh, Trix cereal.
So that one also goes through all generations. We've had like 70s kids say Trix.
Yeah.
They're still killing it.
But interestingly, I don't know that I never ate Danimal and I never ate Trix. Like it didn't necessarily translate to consumption even at that young age. Yeah. Like I can identify them as great commercials, but like I loved my Fruity Pebbles. I don't know that it was, I don't know what commercial made me love them, but I loved Fruity Pebbles. But like Kids Cuisine, their commercials did make me want to buy the product.
Kids Cuisine. I bought a lot of Kids Cuisine.
Yeah, we harassed our mom to buy it. And she was like, no, it's bad for you, like whatever. But like we harassed her. We need it. And so she should get it for us.
Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. And
Thank you for having me. A pleasure and a privilege to chat always.
And one day we have to get together like live in person.
In person.
Great.
Yeah. You'll have to come by our place in New York or LA. We'll have to make it happen.
Yes. Next time.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Have a wonderful week ahead, my friend. And excited to keep the conversation going. Always.
Bye. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please check back next Monday for a new episode featuring marketing conversations through the lens of influence. I am your host, Danielle Wiley, and this is The Art of Sway.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Matt Bailey hosts a fantastic podcast called The Endless Coffee Cup. Matt, tell these fine folks what they'll get when they listen.
At Endless Coffee Cup, we go beyond the headlines with a regular discussion of marketing news, media, and culture about our complex digital lifestyle. Of course, with my emphasis on education, I have great guests from all over the world that share their stories, giving listeners unique insights into their experiences and expertise.
Sounds super useful. Where can people subscribe?
They can go to my website at sitelogic.com or find the show at marketingpodcast.net. Or hey, we're everywhere, wherever you get your podcast.
You heard him. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.